I would say one of the core tenets, one of the core, keystones of Trumpism, Trump ideology is this idea of tariffs. Time and time again, as soon as he took that oath to be the 47th president, he's talked time and time again about tariffs. And I know there's so many more professional videos out there that'll explain to you why tariffs are terrible from both right-leaning and left-leaning people. And like any other person, like any other educated person, I would say, yeah, I don't think tariffs are the best thing in the world. I know, hot take. As someone who is very, interested in political science, I also have taken up a hobby and passion for economics. One thing I do appreciate about economists is that they're very empirical. They're not very opinionated, which is like the complete opposite in politics. Like, for example, they will just take as much information as they can collect, um, about data, trends, demographics, whatever, and then they'll come up with a conclusion and say, this is what happened because of this. It's very cut and dry. They're going to tell you, if tariffs come, if Trump's tariffs go full fledged, which some of them are already, this is what's going to happen. And they say, if tariffs don't happen, this is what happens. They're not saying should, would, ought to. They're just saying this is what happens. So I think out of any industry or academia field, I have much respect for the economists of the world or economists of the world. But for fun, I think an important lesson in critical thinking is trying to wrap yourself around as many perspectives as possible. Um, Obviously, there are the extremists of the world, and you shouldn't pay any attention to those kind of ideas. But, people who are for and against sort of things, it's good to learn about other perspectives and other thought processes to understand and maybe make a better, nuanced opinion yourself. So that's what this video is going to serve to do. I'm going to argue for tariffs. First and foremost, this is the Trumpian argument of protectionism, right? I will admit, and this is my opinion too, we are way too damn dependent on some of these countries. I remember during 2020, during the pandemic, we halted our semiconductor chip manufacturing in the States. And because of that and a bunch of other policies that were made, we are now at the mercy of Taiwan. I believe about 98%, someone can correct me on that, 98% of the semiconductor chips we use in the States, whether it's my phone, this computer, or hell, even your fridge these days, are made in Taiwan. I think that's a big issue. That gives them a shit ton of leverage, and two, you know, my thought process is, China is on the loom. They're very hell bent on trying to capture and control Taiwan. Where's the benefit in us having a country that is in political turmoil, so reliant on another economy? I think like Russia, for example, too, a lot of oil is being distributed by Russia. A lot of countries are hell bent and reliant on Russian oil, even if they oppose Vladimir Putin's military endeavors, invading Ukraine. But since their economy is so reliant on Russian oil, it gives Putin a leg up, being able to fund this war and continuously go, go, go. So there's that. Now the question then becomes, do tariffs solve these problems? And like an economist, I would give this answer. You know, you have to understand this idea of uh, social surplus. So social surplus is just the idea that, contributing to the economy in this country, we get benefits. And there's two types of social surplus underneath the social surplus umbrella. You have consumer surplus, meaning if you're a consumer, if you buy goods, the benefit you get, that is consumer surplus. When I buy this phone, the benefit I get, that's my consumer surplus. Producer surplus is probably, the money they get. I bought my phone from Apple, right? The surplus they get is the money that I give them. So we have ways of measuring both consumer and producer surplus. Now, if you were to add a tariff essentially cuts back at both producer and consumer surplus. But the problem is, there's dead weight loss. And dead weight loss, this is very basic econ stuff. deadweight loss is just the idea that the total surplus is going down. What does go up is government revenue. Government revenue is just money going into the government, maybe to pay off the deficit, maybe invest back into the economy. Who knows? That's up to Congress and the power of the purse. But another crucial thing that tariffs do is, so we talk about the size of social surplus. That is the size. But then when you want to talk about equity, or the ratio between consumer and producer surplus, in a perfect utopian economy, you'd ideally want consumer and producer surplus to be about 50-50. But with a free trade, a completely free trade, open wall economy, you see a increasingly heavy favor towards consumer surplus. And you might think to yourself, as a consumer yourself, this is good. I fuck the producers, fuck the corporations. But unfortunately, the producers are the ones who employ us. They're the ones who give us money and give us a livelihood. So, you do not necessarily want an overbearing, consumer surplus sort of, you know, I want to call it a monopoly, but you don't want the tip, you don't want to tip the scales way too much. So what a tariff does, I guess it sort of evens out the playing field, gives producer surplus more in comparison relevant to um, consumer surplus. Now the question is, do tariffs work? Um, the answer is no, unfortunately, even though I'm trying to play devil's advocate. Um, the problem with tariffs are, if you put a tariff on another country, retaliatory tariffs come in. But just to argue for the Trump perspective, many people on the right who are sympathetic to Trump's efforts talk about this idea of tactical tariffs. Um, this idea is plain and simple. Trump, they think, is playing some sort of like poker face, some sort of bluff, saying, "Yeah, watch what I can do. I've got this big red button. I can put 300%, 400%, hell, even 500% tariffs on you, and your economy is going to suffer. We're going down together." Um, and he's using this to achieve different foreign affairs goals. For example, one of the first examples was between Mexico and Canada. Trump immediately said, we're going to pull up tariffs on almost all imports. And he said, I can pause this if you come to the negotiation table, Justin Trudeau and I forgot the Mexican president, and deploy a bunch of your, I think it's like 10,000 border troops on your respective border, because in my opinion there's a border crisis and you were at fault. Both Canada and Mexico complied, and boom, you had a pause on the tariff. Whether or not you think that was a successful thing depends on, do you think the border is at risk, whatever the case is, but there's a use of a tactical tariff. Another example is Colombia. Trump and his administration captured a bunch of Venezuelan, or I believe it was like Colombian gang members, something like that, illegal people who are violent, and they wanted to send them back to their respective country, and I believe it was Colombia, might have been Venezuela, but case in point, the government did not comply. Trump said, "I'm going to raise my tariffs," and boom, they took in the prisoners. So now, this is now where it dips into political science. Do you think Trump was successful? Do you think that his issues that he were quote unquote fixing were real? That's up for you to decide, of course. But just to play devil's advocate and argue, say, yeah, we could use tariffs as a tactical measure. The U.S. is the strongest economy. Let's play our cards correctly. I think that's all I'm going to argue about tariffs. There's not really much to argue. Tariffs have been a thing since God knows how long. For hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of years, tariffs have always existed. There's plenty of data to say that tariffs are generally not good. However, I will end off by saying this. It is scary, and truly, to me, I think it is, in my opinion, scary how reliant we are on other countries, say China, say Taiwan, say whatever, maybe even India in the coming years. We cannot be this reliant. Maybe there is a golden mean. Maybe there's a golden, ratio you want to have between domestic manufacturing and foreign manufacturing so that the consumer is not completely cut off or disadvantaged. That's beyond me. That's beyond my scope of knowledge. Hopefully, in the coming years, or hell, even the coming months, I'll be able to understand that better. Um, but then I guess I'll finish off with this. If you want to understand Trump, to say he's completely irrational with his tariffs, I think is a little bit misappropriated. I think there is a lot of rationality in there, in his interesting little mind. But I think he envisions a United States where, all of our taxes are cut, so we have more money to spend, so that these price hikes with tariffs will not be as affecting towards us, and we'll be fine with them. And on top of that, all manufacturing, all business is going to be, delivered back to the states, and everybody's going to sing kumbaya. Of course, that's probably not going to happen, pragmatically speaking. And, I do not think tariffs, this is Aryan, non devil advocate Aryan saying, I don't think tariffs are the answer. I know, shocker. But, like I said before, there is serious concern about one, the amount of deficit spending we do, and two, the reliance we have on exporter dominant countries. And I think, um, even though tariffs might not be the answer, it's still a problem worth addressing. So, with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.